Weeks after the Nigerian Army declared war against insurgents in the north by neutralizing terrorists, the military high command says no fewer than 1,166 terrorists died from the bullets and aerial bombardment in their numerous hideouts, while 1,096 others were taken into custody in the month of August alone.
With the progress made so far by the Nigerian Army, yesterday proved to be yet another setback as a forward operating base in the Damboa local government area of Borno State was reported to have been attacked by Boko Haram terrorists on Saturday, January 4th, 2025, resulting in several casualties among the Nigerian soldiers. We must also warn you that, of course, some of these videos and pictures can be very disturbing. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Air Force said it has acquired 12 additional fighter aircraft, while it mentioned that armed drones will be used to fight bunkering and insecurity. Now let's talk about some of these recent events and counterattacks, by the terrorists rather, by a security expert who's joining us, Onyekachi Adekoya. Good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right,
it's Adekoya, actually.
Adekoya, I beg your pardon. I want to start with a general view of where we are. And, the reason is, so there's the attack on the forward operating base. There is also the report in Zamfara State where it says here bandits have imposed a 172 million naira levy on villages in Zamfara, in Safe, west of Zamfara State, where it says that the villages are meant to pay with soybeans and money and rice and some other things. And of course, because of that, they've started to flee those villages. In the southeast, I saw that Chidi Odinkalu posted something yesterday saying that what seems to have been a systematic slaughter last night across several communities in Osu local government area, with the casualty count at about 23, but could be higher. So let's get a general view of where we are with these attacks and what exactly might be going on with Nigerian security sector.
Again, first of all, Happy New Year to the viewers and good morning to those of you in the studio. Nigeria still, we've made some progress last year, but again, like I'd always say, there are structural issues that makes almost mincemeal of some of the challenges that we have, because you are shooting at a moving target. Basically, that's what's occurring. In the first case you mentioned in Damboa, the Chadians had moved about 2,000 soldiers to just about the border, according to reports, and they had begun a clearance operation on their own side, which forced some of the insurgents over to our own side, according to the reports. Again, also know that at the time we had 3 divisions in the northeast. At the height of the insurgency, we've had to now cut down on the amount of forces, resources we have deployed, because you also have a raging problem in the northwest. Yeah. So to some extent, we thinned out a bit. The problem we thought had gone away since last year, towards later last year, had been showing some resurgence. I mean, we're also considering the fact that they had been narrowed just to the Sambisa forest. So that's the long and short of the issue in the northeast, northwest. But something significant is starting to occur. The military high command did also report that the terrorists are beginning to also engage in ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, using drones. And there's been, at the last count, almost 6 to 7 sightings of them using drones before conducting an attack. I think that's what is changing. In the northwest side, I mean, it's no news that people have to pay Ansaru or pay some bandit group for protection. I mean, that's where we are. That's where we are, basically.
Also in the southeast?
It's the same thing. In the south, it is called Egunche. You have to pay the money. You want to bury a loved one, you want to do a ceremony. In some part, not in all parts of the southeast. I was in the southeast over the holidays on 2 occasions. Security has improved. But again, the Olu axis of Imo State still has its own issues.
Yeah.
Other parts of the southeast are not as bad as they used to be. So there is some progress. But the problem with bad news is that it seems to have a lot of friends these days. Again, you can expect that because people don't anticipate evil or don't expect evil to occur. So when they do occur, they suck the room of oxygen, as it were, which almost makes nonsense of the good work that the armed forces and police and the sacrifices that they're making day in, day out.
I wanted you to also see if you can help us shed some light on what may have occurred with the Miyetti Allah, the head of the Miyetti Allah being kidnapped. I think he was killed, rather, and that his wives were kidnapped. I don't know if you heard of that story. And to find out what might have been, if there is an update regarding that story as well. His wives were kidnapped. We hear that they were being chased, and after a while there was an exchange of gunfire, and then they had to leave one vehicle behind and leave one wife behind.
Unfortunately, I have not been following that story.
Okay.
If he has been, I mean, it's people are kidnapped every other day in this country, sadly. So,
okay, let's go back to what you said about the fact that they've now started, these terrorists and unknown gunmen have started to conduct surveillance, and they're using weapons and using some very advanced gadgets like drones to conduct their surveillance as well. We can't deny the fact that, I mean, this will take us back to the reports by the NBS about how much was paid to kidnappers and terrorists in the past year. And how do we then get to the point where we can maybe reduce ransom payments, because a number of these monies then go into funding equipment, buying high-tech equipment, and then we can't also ignore the area of the porosity of our borders by which these equipments and these you know, gadgets come into the country. So how do we then get to the point where we can start to reduce the amount of monies that are being paid? Basically, how do we get over this?
So, interesting on this issue of drone, the military high command did claim that the insurgents used baby drones, that they were not sophisticated drones. But I don't know how much of the drone warfare the Nigerian Army is following up on. I mean, you even have drones relaying signals. You now have drone repeaters, you know, so drone warfare is quite sophisticated. And the problem with drone warfare is attrition. You can attrit a conventional force like the Nigerian Army with cheap and cheerful drones. So what you call baby drones, yes, they may be baby, but in the philosophy of modern day warfare, those are the ideal tools to attrit a well-entrenched, well-resourced force. So it's a big problem. I don't know how much of the electronic warfare equipment we have, but again, it opens another vista. Like I said, it's a moving target. Now we've gone into the insurgents, terrorists using drone warfare for surveillance. The next question is, how do you counter the drone warfare? Now, on the issue of continued payments of ransom and how we deal with it, unfortunately, ransom will still be paid this year, unfortunately, even till next year and the year after. I heard just by the side that the state governments had said they now support state police. It's now all talk. Let's follow the trend and follow the way the operations is going. We have the military in operations across 31 states. The size of the military is the Nigerian Army, not up to 200,000. Our total land mass is about 923,000 or 30-something thousand square kilometers. It's big. And you have the military spread thin, doing even the work of internal policing. And then the police themselves protecting big men and protecting assets. And you don't have enough policemen for the normal day-to-day policing they should be doing. The net impact is that you're going to have this, they'll be dropping the balls at critical points because the police cannot dominate their AOR, their area of responsibility. Neither can the military. So Nigeria as a country is happening to our armed forces. Why the politicians bicker and why people, you know, struggle to make sense of what the space is like. You have people who put their life on the line every day, ill-equipped, ill-resourced, ill-trained, ill-supported, asking them to confront the myriad, what we have in Nigeria is called a hydra-headed, wicked problem. A wicked problem is such a problem that you cannot confront using one solution. You must have an array of solutions, something you tilt towards calling an all-of-society approach towards addressing a problem. So just relying on the military and the police alone as currently constituted and resourced to say, how do we stop ransom payments? They cannot. Yeah. Which is why you have seen from Goodluck Jonathan to President Buhari to this current administration that this issue keeps resurfacing. But there's this catchphrase that says, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and you're expecting a different result, then perhaps you have said so. I haven't said so.
No, the quote said so.
So that's what the quote says. So sadly, and very sadly, we are very far from a solution. These issues will occur and continue to occur.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we're just going, you know.
Yeah.
So we're not going to win this fight, are we?
We are not shaped yet to win this fight, but we can win the fight.
So do you think a starting point would be to be honest with ourselves as to where exactly we are in our level of preparedness to actually win this fight? Or are we going to go through the Bola Tinubu administration again, and then a new government comes in and we continue the same thing? Will we ever be honest with ourselves? Will Nigerian government be honest with Nigerian people even? So the challenge there is two-pronged. No government in the world can be completely honest about its national security posture. Yeah.
Because you have friends, you have states whose interests intersect with your own interests who are out there to take advantage. So honesty, when it comes to national security, you always have classification of information. So honesty is difficult. But in terms of honesty, I don't know how much more honesty you need if the MBS, for example, has given statistics. I mean, what is fact? Facts are observed phenomena. They've stated from only God knows their own set of data. So you see on the news every day, this person killed, this number kidnapped, this person. So how much more honesty do you need other than the reports we're seeing every day that we have a national security structure that is failing? Perhaps you're saying that the people, that's you and I, maybe we need to be honest enough with ourselves to say, okay, maybe we need to hold government to account more seriously. But Nigeria is structured in a way that the person you want to hold to account is far from you. When we talk about security, we all want to hold the president. But you can't see the president readily. The governors that you see, if you want to hold them, they'll tell you that they are chief security officers on paper, but they have no responsibility for security.
Right.
For that convenience, I would suppose, without, because these days now they say if you talk anyhow now, they take you to court for defamation. I would suppose perhaps because the governors don't want to be held accountable for security. That's why they keep shanking the responsibility for instituting state police. Because once you have the state police, you can hold the governors first of all. I keep repeating, it's an aberration, short of calling it madness, to be expecting that we all as a country will hold the president responsible for internal security. He cannot do it. There are 774 local governments. I run a company, and we have offices around the country. I tell you, it's difficult for me, even just with 5 regional offices, to operate, and let alone operating 774 local governments, having one IG in charge of security across the country. So structurally, we are not postured for any serious approach to security.
So if we then fully institutionalize state police, would that be the perfect structure or shape to counter insecurity?
You now begin to give yourself a fair footing. It doesn't solve all the problem. So what that does is that you can now pull the military from their different operations, leaving the police tactical units. So when you have a state police structure, you have forces to dominate general area. You then have tactical teams within the state commands to provide what you call suppressive fire or quick response when the need occurs. The military will now be last resort. But within when you need the military, at least you give them some respite to increase their deployment to forward areas where the attention is needed. In that case of Damboa, for example, that particular fob may have been attacked more than 50 times. But what happened in this instance is that they were overwhelmed. This time they were successful. What does that tell you? Perhaps the troop size had thinned out. Surveillance aside, before you come to that fob, you will have had to cross different installations, different formations. But when you thin out like that, you can't blame the military because you've asked them to move from the northeast to the northwest and then stem issues in the north central. They are succeeding in the north central as they are succeeding in the northwest, but at a cost. And that cost, you see, is the case in Damboa.
Yeah. Okay, so the current administration is not, would you say that they're not being serious with themselves if they start to count the fact that they are maybe making progress against the fight against insecurity?
So this is where we need to support our own armed forces. That one incident, unfortunate incident, of course, shouldn't cast complete aspersions on the work they've been doing. We are fighting a group that has an ideology. They have their agenda is different from that of the society. Unfortunate as it is, it also exposes the underbelly of our posture. So I wouldn't say this administration is not serious. I would say that successive administrations have not been serious. One, to wit that every time we think about security, you say bring in the general. But societal security is different from military approach to security. Military is to fight, kill, and to win. That's what we train them to do. When you begin to look at our 2019, I don't think the national security strategy has been revised, which says that human security will be the pivot upon which we'll do national security in Nigeria. There's nothing militaristic about that. You're talking about an all-of-society approach where you're looking at infrastructure, education, access to justice, access to social amenities that help you achieve your own self-aspiration, that will win people away from extremism. The economy, agriculture, you are looking at a lot of issues around the human being and his own aspiration and how he can find that aspiration with ease without turning to crime. So the question is that, are those other factors beyond the kinetic side of security, are they being addressed? And at what state are we in addressing those other issues? You've seen the macroeconomic reforms that we're going through. The problem with the reform also, and I think that's what this government is trying to do first, is to plug the gaps in funding and in financing. Now the government is awash with funds, if I may use the words. I think the last report I saw is that the federal government may be saving about 1 trillion every month. I may be wrong, but the state governors have increased funding. The next thing now is, what are you doing with the funding? And how do you prioritize? But if you don't have the correct structure, your funding would not go into the right places. So to answer your question about seriousness, it's a security philosophy problem. We've come from an era where the colonial lords bequeathed to us a security architecture that was not for the people. Successive government have come in and they prioritized regime protection. So over the years, you cannot solve a problem that has been on for 60 years overnight. A complete reframing, a complete rethink of how we approach security is needed. The earlier we start, the better for us.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can wrap the conversation up here, but it is just very disheartening, for me. And again, that's the reason I asked the question. It doesn't seem like it's and no, it's not disregarding the successes that we've recorded, in the fight. But I mean, I think there was also a report of a bomb blast, I'm not sure, a couple of days ago. So it's just very, very disheartening, almost just seeing clearly that this is not.
And one wonders if it's a funding issue now. 4.91 trillion has been budgeted in 2025. And
so to answer that, part of our problem, all of us in Nigeria, is that our psyche has been so damaged by the military that anytime we say who will save us from insecurity, you think the military. That is our biggest problem. When the politicians are looking for advice on security, they call the retired major general or a general, okay? But industrial security deals now with societal issues, with the criminal justice system, with framing of security for the civilians, by the civilians, to achieve the aspirations of civilians. The military they are now learning internal peacekeeping. What that means is that successively we put the police behind until we start funding the Nigerian police training them, equipping them to become the police of the future, we will continue to be that backward country where we need the military. I mean, imagine who's talking about security. I saw the chief of defense staff on Al Jazeera.
Yeah, I watch that as well.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Fair enough. We have an insurgency. There's a military operation going on, so he can speak. I see the defense information person issue press statement. Fair enough. He can do that because we have military operations. Nigerians must be briefed every day on what they are doing. But when you do an array of security law enforcement officers, what's the pecking order like? You would always see, they call it protocol. You put the military first. You find somewhere for the police after the military. We're in a democracy, for Christ's sake. The military should not be heard. They should not be seen. We should see more of the police, more of our own DSS, what you may even want to call the FBI, doing their job, funding, increasing their personnel, and let them, because policing goes into the society.
All right.
So that is where we need to morph to. As long as we take a militaristic approach, we will continue to suffer the lack of nuance. And that's the problem we continue to see.
Yeah.
All right. Onyekachi Adekoya, thank you for joining us this morning. We're counting down the days to Armed Forces Remembrance Days on the 15th of January, and hopefully we'll have some, good stories to share on that day, especially to remember the lives of those who have lost their lives and lost loved ones in the service of protecting our country.